If you're worried about the dealer or the manufacturer terminating your warranty, then this is the video for you. And I've noticed even on my small channel, this is by far and away the question I get asked the most on most of my videos, either where we're doing modifications to the truck or oil changes. The question is, will the dealer void my warranty for this? Or does doing this void your warranty? This is sort of a complex question to answer, but we're going to dive into it. And I'm also going to tell you guys about a true story that happened to me at this point about a decade ago, where this packet in my hands was my saving grace when it came to getting the manufacturer to reverse their decision on a warranty claim. But first, let's talk about warranties, because the question gets asked a lot by people because I think there's a lot of misinformation online regarding vehicle warranties. And that misinformation, I believe, is very intentional and by design. Because if I had to take a guess, I would say manufacturers would prefer that people think that their warranties are on, off, black, white, right, blanket, versus what they actually are, which is on a case by case basis. So, what I mean by that is at this point, over 50 years ago, the federal government passed what's nicknamed the M&M law, but it stands for Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act. And that's what set the foundation for how all vehicle warranty claims work. I know it covers other things besides vehicles, but that's what we're talking about today. The idea is that this set of legislation refutes the entire notion that warranties are blanket, right? You either have it or you don't. In fact, it's the exact opposite. But you see, even today, we have dealers going around telling people, well, that avoids your warranty. This avoids your warranty. We have car review pages and blogs online like Edmunds telling people their warranty could be voided for this reason or that reason. And the FTC has repeatedly sent notices to companies warning them you have to be careful with how you word things because what you're saying is simply not true. And the M&M law, what it does is it says warranties are not on and off, right? It's not a black and white thing. It's case by case. If I do something or if I modify something on my engine and that directly causes damage to the engine in some way, shape, or form, and I'm under warranty and I bring the truck to the dealership, as long as they can reasonably demonstrate that that part or that component or that repair caused the damage, then they can deny that warranty claim, right? But let's say I also bring the truck in for a separate issue, right? Let's say there's an issue with the rear caliper on the truck. The dealership or the manufacturer, they can't say, well, since you voided your warranty already with the shenanigans up front, we're also going to deny the rear caliper. And that's where people, I think, are getting confused because they feel that if they do their own oil change or they make their own repair, they do an aftermarket modification, they replace a part with something that's aftermarket versus OEM, they feel that all of those things could result in a blanket warranty void. And the answer is no, that is not true, because that's never how it's been for over now, at this point, over half a century. It hasn't been that way. And it's not going in that direction, I'd say, anytime soon. And the FTC has been very clear about how this works. And there are companies out there like Harley Davidson that have gotten in legal trouble for making those kinds of representations. Now, manufacturers can require OEM parts be used in certain areas of a vehicle, but they have to get permission to be able to state that. And there is a process for a manufacturer to be able to say, no, only this part or only this OEM part can be used for this component of the vehicle, and they have to demonstrate the reasons why. What's important here, and if you take away one thing from this video, it's that yes, you do have the right to repair your own vehicle. And yes, you do have the right to modify your own vehicle. And no, by changing your own oil or putting on aftermarket tires, those things in and of themselves will not blanket void your warranty, right? Now, it's the issues that could come from doing those things. I'm going to give you a few examples. I want to run through this, right? You put on larger tires, right? Let's say you go from 33s to 35s, and then you have an issue with a caliper seizing up, and you bring it to the dealer. There's a high chance the dealer is not going to give you issues. Why? Well, because it would be pretty hard for the dealer or the manufacturer to prove that a larger tire resulted in a caliper seizing up if it's still within mileage that the warranty prescribes, right? That's a big jump. That's a big argument to make. Now, of course, they could try. Dealers do it all the time. But with a little pushback, you'll realize that they'll usually quickly return to the correct conclusion. So that's one example of like, okay, well, yeah, you made an aftermarket modification, but it's not going to blanket void your warranty. Another example, you wrap your truck like I'm doing right here. And afterwards, you have issues with seals, right? Now, if I wrap the truck and I don't correctly put these seals back, right? Because I take them off and then I put them back, and then there's water intrusion into the cabin. Could the manufacturer, the dealer, say, well, since you wrapped the truck and we see your seals are deformed and water got in the cabin, so therefore we're going to void your warranty? Could they say that? Or not void your warranty? See, I'm even saying it now. Could we deny that claim? Yes, they can do that, and they do it all the time. That's a great example of like, hey, if you mess with your truck, you are assuming some percentage of risk. I'm not saying you're not, because when you modify your truck or do your own maintenance, you are assuming some risk. And with that risk, you have to be able to accept the consequences if you don't do something right. Right? So that's a great example. Like if water gets in and let's say it, an electronic module is affected by that water or that moisture intrusion, then yes, the manufacturer can say, we're not going to cover that claim. But there still is a burden of proof element to this, right? And the dealer and the manufacturer, for the most part, the burden of proof is on them. The level of what proof they need to bring forward sometimes isn't very black and white. They may just say, oh, well, since we, like, for example, let's say had a JB4 on the truck. They may say, well, since there's a JB4 on the engine bay, and then once your engine seized up, we knew the JB4 caused it. That's not good enough. If you push back, a lot of times they will have to get you a little bit better of an answer than that. Now, speaking of JB4, this all folds into a true story of mine about a decade ago with a certain manufacturer, which that manufacturer I'm not going to list the name of. But if you've watched my prior videos or you know the cars I've owned in the past, maybe you could draw a solid conclusion as to who that manufacturer was. But at the time, I bought a brand new car and I had maybe 3,000 or 4,000 miles on it. And at the time, the tuning capabilities with that car were not strong. There weren't a lot of options out there. And so I installed a JB4 on the engine, which if you guys are not familiar with what a JB4 is, it's essentially a piggyback tuner. It's not a real tune. It doesn't rewrite the ECU software to actually alter values. It's a piggyback. It basically intercepts signals and, for lack of a better word, tricks the truck or the vehicle into thinking it needs to deliver this amount of boost versus that amount of boost, this amount of fuel versus that amount of fuel, right? That's what piggyback tuners do. They're not real tunes in essence. But JB4 out of all of them, I'd say, is an industry leader. They're one of the best. But nonetheless, I had a JB4 on the car. And there was an issue with the engine now. Specifically, the issue was that the crankshaft hub on this engine was not locked. It wasn't a keyed crankshaft hub. And so what that means is that the chance for it to spin and for timing to go out was a lot higher than a locked crankshaft hub. But the advantage to the unlocked design is that when there is an issue, the engine just goes out of time. It doesn't grenade itself. But on the flip side, it happens more often. This engine in early iterations, specifically 2015 to 2017, was having this issue extensively. We don't know the exact number, but there was an estimate that somewhere between 1% and 3% of all owners had this issue, which 1 to 3% in the automotive world is pretty huge. And it was happening on stock vehicles. You didn't even have to be flooring it. Now, of course, if you had a manual and you money shifted it, sure, it could cause the issue as well. But the point is that it was happening across the board to owners that were tuned running 6 pounds over boost, owners that were running 0 pounds over boost and were completely stock, owners that were flooring it when it happened. Maybe somebody money shifted it. Maybe somebody was just driving normal. Well, in my case, I was just driving normal on a road. I was in fifth gear at, I don't know, 35, 40 miles an hour. And I had the JB4 on, and the drivetrain malfunction light pops up, and I lose power, and the engine's running rough. And so I had it towed to the dealer, and uh, they gave me a not so great opinion on the issue with the car. Unfortunately, they weren't able to really diagnose it. So at that point, I had it brought to another dealership. And that dealership drew the conclusion that yes, the car spun out of time. There are some things that are broken, but the engine is still very much operable and can be fixed. Nothing's bent. Um, you know, the engine itself is solid. It's just a lot of the accessory hardware needs to be replaced. The engine needs to be retimed, and the damage is $18,000. And since you had a JB4 in the car, we're not going to cover it. The other thing I do want to say is with piggyback tuners, people think that they're undetectable by the dealerships. This is not really true, right? Because there is cookie data, ECM data that is being recorded in live time. And let's say you were flooring it when this issue happened. And if they're reading data, and this is by manufacturer, it may vary, but I know with this specific manufacturer, they can see all of this. If they see the car is supposed to be running 19 pounds of boost OEM, and it was running 23 pounds of boost when the incident occurred. Now, in between gear shifts, you can have boost spike, which is a very real thing. But if they determine it's outside of boost spike, they're going to logically conclude that, okay, we know there's no, the rewrite count on the ECM is 0, but we can also see that all the parameters look very different than what it did OEM. They can logically conclude that a piggyback tuner was in play, right? So don't think that you could just unplug the piggyback and bring it into the dealership and say, I don't know what happened. Sometimes that does work, but other times, depending on the manufacturer, it's not going to work. And so what I had to do was basically make the argument and prove that this is a claim that should be covered under the warranty. And I had to give and basically build an entire case over those next few weeks. Now, again, notice how this issue happened. The engine went out of time and there was things that needed to be replaced and the damage was $18,000, but the warranty was never actually void. And this whole incident was how I learned about how warranties actually work. And so if I also had an issue with something else on the vehicle and they couldn't attribute it to the JB4, for example, they would have to replace that, right? So I started making calls to corporate. I called different reps of the corporate. I got a corporate rep that took on the case, and I recorded every single phone call I had with them. And I tried to I asked them the same questions over and over to try and get them to contradict themselves, right? This is the first step in building any sort of solid case, is trying to establish and obtain information that you can get that somebody or the same person is contradicting themselves and delivering, right? So one day the rep would tell me one thing, and the next day the rep would tell me another thing. And I could now directly prove that those were contradicting statements. The second thing I did was I requested a regional engineer be sent down to the dealership to assess the damage on the engine, to validate the opinion that the dealer gave me, and to confirm that they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the JB4 was what actually led to the damage. While that was all happening, you have to realize that this manufacturer at the time, they knew very well that this was a common issue on the engine. That is probably one of the main reasons they sent the regional engineer down, because they knew. I just had to get them to admit that. And so the next thing I did was I went on the forums and I did a lot of scouring, and I found dozens and dozens of reports of owners with stock, untouched engines that had the same issue. And the dealership covered it because there was nothing at that point that they could blame. There was no JB4. In this case, my dealer found a convenient exit. The JB4 was their convenient exit. And that's the big thing with dealers. They will try to find convenient reasons to deny coverage. But if you feel even 1% that aftermarket part or modification or repair wasn't the sole contributor to this issue, then you need to fight back. You need to push. So I got proof on the forums that people were having this issue with stock vehicles. I collected voicemails and recordings of phone calls and letters that had contradicting statements, right? With people that were making statements on behalf of this company. The third thing I did was I prepared long, lengthy legal letters, essentially, to the company. I addressed the president of this company, North America, by the way, their North America offices. And I also sent that same letter to their general counsel, essentially saying, look, if you guys don't agree to do one of two things, either A, prove conclusively and irrefutably that the JB4 caused this issue, or B, cover the repair, I will sue you. Long story short, I prepared over 100 pages of all this evidence. I put it all together, all my letters, all my recordings, all my evidence online. I spoke with actual real owners that told me the different things and how it went with their experience. I compiled it all together. I mailed this large 4-inch binder to their office and I said, this is your final warning. This is everything I have. I didn't say everything. I think I said this is most of what I have. And the next day I got a call from somebody at North America, and they said that the manufacturer and the dealer have decided to move forward and cover the repair, all $18,000 of it. And I also got them to send me a letter that said that my warranty is not void. This company, a very big manufacturer of automobiles, sent me a letter that says my warranty is not void. So that right there, that proves it all, guys, right? They sent me the letter. They said the warranty is not void and we're covering the damage. Now, the dealer, maybe they red flagged me in their system, I don't know. But the warranty was not void. And that's the biggest takeaway here. If you don't believe at least what I'm saying, at least believe my story. And you can go look up the law yourself. But the biggest thing here is you do have the right to repair your own vehicle. You do have the right to put aftermarket parts on your vehicle. You do have the right to modify your vehicle. Just know that there's always risk in doing that, right? And as long as the dealer or the manufacturer can provide some sort of valid proof that that modification or that repair caused an issue, then yes, they can deny a claim, but they can't blanket void your warranty. So a lot of people on my oil change video asked, will this void the warranty? If you use the correct oil, you documented your procedure, you replace what you needed to replace, they'll take an oil sample if they need to. I know a lot of times, a lot of guys at the dealers will say they don't normally do that unless they have to. But if it's a big deal, they may. If they can't find any issue with the work that you did or performed, they can't just say, oh, well, since you did it and not us, your warranty is void. So that's my long spiel on warranties. That's my story. What a wild ride that was. And that overall, that process, I think, took 48 days from the very start to the very finish. But I got it covered and I sold the car afterwards because I realized at that point it was bad luck. But that's the answer, guys. They can't void your warranty. They can just deny claims. Any manufacturer or dealer that tells you that, go report them to the FTC, because we need manufacturers, we need dealers, we need car blog people, we need people in the industry in general to stop saying that, because it's not true. And it's causing consumers to fear doing anything to their vehicles. And that's never a good thing. We should have the right to repair our own vehicles. We should have the right to modify our own vehicles within reason. As a consumer and an owner, you should also take the responsibility and do those things properly. You shouldn't do Chotsky things to your car and expect the dealer to fix your own issues. No, the dealer has a right to deny any claims that they feel is a result of you messing or tampering with with the vehicle or the system. But we all got to take responsibility, right? Manufacturers and dealers, they got to stop perpetrating lies. And us as owners, we got to do better, right? We got to document. We got to use the correct oil in our cars. We got to modify our cars within reason, and we can't do crazy things. If you want to do crazy things, well, then don't bring your car to the dealer and don't ask them to fix things when it breaks. Anyways, that's the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps the channel tremendously. If you enjoy my content, like the video, comment down below. All those things really help more than you could imagine. And then also in my YouTube bio, I now have a link tree, they call it. It's basically a website that has all my links. There's a link to my Facebook group. There's a link to all the products that I review on my page with discount codes and my score 1 out of 10 that I give all products. So if you are looking to buy something for this truck, stop. First, go to my Excel page, right in my link tree. It'll give you any coupon code that I have for that product and my score 1 out of 10 and my thoughts overall on the product. And it also will link the video review that I did for that product. We have a ton more products that are coming very soon. You can't see it, but behind the truck, there's like 11 boxes. It's that crazy. But I got to finish the wrap on the truck, which, as you could tell, I'm very close at this point. Final review coming within the next few days, I think. And then after that, we'll let the modifying begin. Thanks for watching.